At first this might seem a little overwhelming for this assignment, but what I want to help you do is kind of break it up into pieces. And if you look at it as smaller bite-sized pieces, it might not be so scary. So I'm going to do kind of a pseudocode, very loose pseudocode walkthrough of what you might want to try when you're solving this particular problem. So the first thing I would do if I were in your shoes is I would write a method that just reads and displays the line items for each tickets.txt file. So if I have a method that is just reading in the records and printing them out, that way I know I have a good handle on being able to read in the files, read in from the files and display them. So that method by itself is a good one to get started on before you try to bite some of the other pieces. Once you get that going, the next thing I would do is get a loop working that is going to get license numbers from the keyboard. So just get that loop running over and over again, get a license number, print it out or something like that, just so we know that that's working. So then the next thing I would do is I would create the method that's going to, it's a separate method from this first one. This first one is just displaying the data from the tickets file. So in other words, maybe at the very end I could display all of my line items at all my new revised tickets.txt file. So this is a separate method, and this method is the one I'm going to use to read in the line item and make the changes that are required. So I will create a method that reads each line item from the tickets.txt file, and I would, if I were you, load them into an array. So I'm going to ultimately then use my array. I'm going to read in all of the records, and I'm going to read them all into an array, and I'm going to manipulate that array before I write out my changes. So that's what I would do in the short run. I would read everything into an array that I can then manipulate. And at this point, I could print out the array just to make sure that that portion of this code is working properly. Once I get that working in this method, the next thing I would do is I would loop through that array and see if the license number exists in the array. So I would assume that this is a method that's probably going to receive the license number that I got from above. So I'm going to receive the license number, and I'm going to loop through that array, all of those records I read in from the text file. I'm going to loop through the array and just see if I can find a match for a license number. So I would test that by printing out maybe a if statement. If the license number is found, print yay. If the license is not found, print boo, or something, just to make sure that that portion of it is working. In other words, if I type in a license number that already existed in the tickets file, print out yay. If it didn't, print out boo. So that's just, again, getting step by step working. Once I get that portion working, the next thing I would do is, if the license is in the array, I would want to increment that number by 1. So if I found that license number and it already had, like in my video, 5 tickets, now I'm going to increment that by 1, and I'm doing it in the array items. So I'm not touching the actual text file right now. I'm just editing the array item. So I probably need to gosh, speaking lessons. I probably need to get at each string element into an array line by line so I can increment just that 1. So once I got that working, I would probably test it by putting in a license number that I know existed and seeing, maybe printing out the array to make sure that that's changing. The next step I would do once I got that portion working is, after I made the change to that line item, if license was found or if it was not found, I would append each of those line items, either the revised one or the one that I haven't changed. Because I'm looping through each line, right? I would then append that line item to a new array. So in other words, I'm going to use a new array to print out my final output. So the new array is going to have a new line item with a line item with either a new ticket amount, or else it's going to rewrite the line item that it found that wasn't edited. So in other words, I'm looping through the array and I'm writing all of those records to a new array, either the same as it was or incrementing it by 1 if I found an existing license number. If I didn't find an existing license number, and after I was done looping through all of those array items, Since this license number was not found, if it was not found, I need to make sure I append that to the new array. So I'm rewriting all of the elements that were in tickets.txt file with this loop into a new array. And if it found an array item, it's going to increment it by 1. If it found a matching license, it's going to increment it by 1. If it didn't find a matching license number, it simply appended that record to my new array. So by the time this loop is done, I have a copy of the array that filled with the tickets.txt file. Now I've got a new array, and then I want to make sure if that license number wasn't found, that I add a new license number to my new array. And then I would write the new array to the text.txt file, overriding the old data with a new updated array. And that, my friends, should be the overall process to help you get through the driver's license app.